A very good morning and warm welcome to everyone to this very important discussion that we are going to have in the next 90 minutes. My name is Rana. I lead the renewable energy work at NRDC India. On behalf of NRDC and our partners, SEWA and AREAs, which is the Association of Renewable Energy Agencies of States of MNRE, I welcome you all to be part of this conversation and really will also encourage you all to take part in the conversation. So we should have a bilateral kind of a two-way conversation is on this important topic, which where we are going to talk about how we can put gender at the heart of India's clean energy transition. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dipa Singh Bagai, country head of NRDC India, to offer the welcome remarks and welcome you all to this conversation. Dipa, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, namaskar, swagat. It is such an important occasion for all of us who have been associated over the years with WSDS and for WSDS itself that we are celebrating, and this is one of the first events that we are having as part of WSDS. WSDS has turned out to be a very important milestone in recognizing the progress we are making and the world is making, and also recognizing the challenges and the tasks ahead that we have in taking forward our journey towards making our planet sustainable. So that's kind of the broad context of why we are here. But the immediate and important context of why we are here is our session. And our session is really important because it addresses such a fundamental issue in India and the world, but particularly for our country. And that issue is of putting gender at the heart of India's clean energy transition. So not only is the issue important globally and nationally, it is also something which is an issue very close to my heart. And today is a significant occasion, not only because it recognizes that important issue, but even personally today for me, it's a landmark day. And I just want to share with you how important it is that every part of one's body, whatever that body might be, should be functioning effectively and efficiently. I can tell you that from personal experience. I have spent the last 4 months with a broken ankle. On 1st November, I broke my ankle very badly. I had to go in for a complicated surgery, and it has taken me a long time to get to the stage where I am today. And I have to share with you that today is personally such an important occasion that it's the first day that I'm back at work. It's the first day that I'm facing my colleagues in person in the office setting, and I'm so happy, so privileged, and so grateful for this opportunity and for the fact that all of you are here with me today. So a very big thank you for being here. Why I was saying is that it's very important to be healthy and for every part of the body to function effectively is when you look at India's clean energy transition, you find that only a very small part of that body, which is like my ankle, is about 10% of the rest of my body, maybe. I mean, it's a rough percentage. But it completely hampered my being able to live a normal life. Similarly, when we talk about India's energy transition and we think that women form only 11% of the workforce, that is involved in renewable energy solutions, I mean, what a big mistake we are making. What a big challenge we are facing, that we are not able to harness the remaining 89%, or at least the remaining 50%, so that if we have a full workforce of 100 and we have 50% men and 50% women, or at least some more equal participation of women. So that is such a big challenge. And that is a challenge which, as the days progress, as we progress in our journey towards our renewables goal, that's going to become more and more important because of some factors. When we started with renewable energy, it was very much an urban phenomena. It is now spreading to other parts of the country, and rural renewable energy is becoming very important. As the geographical spread happens, so also the demographics of the women of the population where renewable energy has to extend, and eventually it has to extend to each part of the country, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and from Gujarat to the extreme northeast. And everywhere we have to make sure that women have an equal and equitable role in this. There is a reason for it. And the reason is that as the renewable energy revolution, as we like to call it, spreads, it will need it to touch many lives. And those lives will have to be touched by people not only as the suppliers of renewable energy, but as consumers of renewable energy, and in addition, as those who look after these renewable energy installations. And again, that workforce which will be involved not only in both the demand side and the supply side, just as a workforce, has to be equitable and has to have more women participating in it, simply because in some parts of the country, it so happens that there is a much larger women's population. And I just want to highlight a small factor here. I have served in Uttarakhand area. Uttarakhand, for many years, has been called a money order economy. And why is that? Because a lot of the men migrate from there to work in either the armed forces or in labor or in other industries, and who are left behind in the villages? Largely the women, older people, and children. And Uttarakhand is one of the areas where renewable energy is extremely important, because spreading grid lines with the regular power supply is A, very difficult. B, also it's a challenge because these are very ecologically fragile areas. So regular thermal, etc. energy will not work there and should not work there. So what does that leave behind? That leaves behind a demand and a supply which has to be managed more by women than by anyone else. So what do we have to do then? In these kind of areas, we have to make sure that the women are capable enough and empowered enough to not only make sure that they can articulate their demand, but that demand has to be met, and those installations have to be managed. From my own experience, I can tell you that those renewable energy installations have the capacity to be decentralized enough for them to be able to spread renewable energy in remote areas and in very small settlements. But in those settlements, if a solar panel or if a hydro structure is out of order, or something happens which is not allowing it to function effectively, the women there, who are largely the population there, have to wait for a long time till somebody can come from a faraway urban area or a city or where that service is available to come and repair that or replace that or maintain that. That is simply not sustainable. So just as a microcosm to make sure that we are able to provide the capacity to these women to be able to demand, install, maintain, and take advantage of the renewable energy revolution that is happening in India is extremely important. So my point firstly is that let us look at these people who are in these outlying areas, these women who otherwise will be more marginalized than they already are. So to include them and to bring them into the fold is extremely, extremely important. And if we say that we are putting gender at the heart of India's clean energy transition, then we can't afford to have these faraway nerve endings of that body to be deprived of that. So the heart is there, but it's pumping out to all the extremities. And that is just such an important task that we all have. Everybody in this room has some or the other role in this transition. I would just like to remind us to be mindful of that. Again, going back to my analogy of my ankle and putting India at the heart of clean energy transition. So what happens is that when the surgery happened, a lot of the blood vessels were cut and a lot of the nerve endings were cut. So when the heart again starts to pump the blood, because there is not enough nerve endings there to pick up the blood and to keep it flowing, I would have a terrible tingling sensation, great deal of pain, and I could not sleep nights because the heart is pumping that out, but by the time it's reaching there, there is the system that should be able to absorb it and to nourish my body with it wasn't functioning. Let us make sure that we don't do that with India's clean energy transition. Let us make sure that we include all these, whether the work that is being done in Kashmir or it is being done in Kerala, we can include all that. I can see my SEWA sisters nodding in agreement because they are some of the flag bearers, the torch bearers of this revolution. And I am proud and happy to say that we have a wonderful, long association with SEWA, where we started out at a small scale more than a decade ago and took some baby steps which have now become giant strides and are actually changing the clean energy landscape. So I would like all of us to first give a big hand to our SEWA sisters and the millions of women they represent here, and to thank them for the wonderful work they are doing, and to revel in our partnership and to stand here today and renew that partnership and say that we are with you every step of the way, and we would like that this clean energy revolution, which can put the women at the heart of this clean energy revolution, it's people like yourselves that will help us to take this forward. You are like my orthopedic surgeon, you are the surgeons, the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics that are actually making this change happen and making that body whole again. So please continue to do the good work, and a big thank you for that. I also want to recognize here the contribution that we have had from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in the Government of India. They have been a very important, solid, path-breaking, visionary partner for us. And it is our privilege and honor that we have worked with them almost from the time, more than 10 years, from the time that the partnership started, and it has just grown successively. We have a very strong memorandum of understanding with the ministry through the areas, that is the Association of Renewable Energy Agencies. The renewable energy agencies are in the various states, and the areas is the consortium, and we work with them closely to see how much we can provide support, technical assistance, knowledge sharing, ideas, and good diagnostics and analytics to help the ministry and to help the people of India, the women of India especially, to take this work forward. The partnership that we have with areas is also a very significant one from the point of view that that has been one of the levers of our extending this work to the women in renewable energy. For a very long time, even in the ministry, renewable energy was thought to be gender neutral. But with every passing day and with every new development, it has been recognized that renewable energy is not gender neutral. And the ministry, more than, I think, 5 years ago, started to think about it in a much more sensitive way. And they have now a whole division which deals with women in renewable energy. I'm happy to say that we work closely with that division and have, over the years, not only recognized the importance of women in renewable energy, but also celebrated it. So for successive years, on International Women's Day or on the World Environment Day and significant days, we have, together with our partners, recognized and worked together with MNRE to be able to celebrate, recalibrate, move this vision forward, and have the women in renewable energy focus within the ministry re-emphasized, and to have both policy, program, implementation, and monitoring built around the women in renewable energy. When I was saying earlier that renewable energy, or for that matter, any energy, is not gender neutral, what do I mean by that? Renewable energy affects women in very different ways than it does men. And again, I would like to illustrate with an example. I come from a village which is about 150 kilometers from Lucknow, and it is a very backward area. It is the heart of Uttar Pradesh, the land between the two rivers, Do Aba, Ganga and Jamna. Ab is water in Urdu, so the land of the two waters, Do Aba, between the two waters. So it's a very fertile area, but again, very underdeveloped, because it's been fertile for many historical civilizations. So the fertility obviously goes down and the population pressure increases, and the development of women in that area, unfortunately, has suffered a lot over the years. So it's also an area where there are a lot of traditional taboos. One of those taboos is that you cannot have a toilet, and that's for many reasons. For the way the sewerage systems work, for the way the plumbing works, for the way the water supply is. Because in many of these areas, there's no regular water supply, like piped water. It's reaching, but it's still very limited in some parts. I come from a part where it is still limited. So to be able to use the toilet at night, in the earlier days, you had to put together a group of 3 or 4 women who could then go together to reach a toilet. To do that, you had to disturb at least 4 or 5 other women so that you could make that combined trek. And what would happen as a result? You waited. You said, okay, let me wait till it gets a little bit more into the morning. Those kind of things have a drastic, terrible effect on women's health. Urinary tract infections, other kinds of illnesses. It is just so pathetic that for as basic a need as using the toilet, this was not working. The renewable energy revolution has been so fantastic that we put 3 small solar panels in the large courtyard, and then there's a little sort of how should one say, like a little forest area, not even forest, बाग जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं, like a mango orchard. And the toilet is built after that, so that it stays away from where the people are staying. Just those 3 lights have made it possible to get up at any time of the night and walk to the toilet and use the toilet and improve the health of the woman. Now, such a small difference affects men and women in a very different way. We often don't realize that. So my point is that using, demanding, taking care of renewable energy or the clean energy transition that we are going through, it affects women in so many different ways, because what does it do? It helps in women's health. It helps in women's economic empowerment, because they then get the opportunity to be able to get up early. I mean, I remember this example from when we were in Gujarat with the SEWA sisters, and we were told that because we have the solar energy, we can get up very early in the morning and do so much more work. Otherwise, we are tossing and turning in bed because it's still dark and we don't have light to, the children don't have electricity in which they could study in the morning. The women don't have an appliance by which they could churn the milk to be able to make it into butter and sell it to the dairy. So it just changes things in such small ways for women, which men would probably not even realize, because it's not affecting their lives. Therefore, it is extremely important for us to recognize that this, putting gender at the heart of India's clean energy transition, it's a big, important goal, but it affects each and every woman, especially the women who are living in those deprived, disadvantaged, faraway areas, in ways that we can hardly imagine sitting in this room where we have air conditioning or power, you know, the microphone, electricity at the turn of a switch. So I would just like us to be mindful of that, to be conscious of that, and to keep that in our thoughts, in our planning. I mean, I'm very happy to welcome the senior officials from the ministry. Thank you so much for being here. And to urge all of us who are in some ways part of making that change to think of these things when we are discussing policy. There are some wonderful schemes which the government has announced, which over the years, what India has done in its renewable energy goals and making that transition has been very remarkable. It's a huge success story. When we started out with this 2 decades ago, I think people couldn't imagine that we'll be where we are now. Also, we couldn't imagine the extent of the effects of climate change and how fast we would have to start to adopt and adapt. But there are some wonderful programs. I mean, we have the PM Surya Ghar. All of us are involved with that in many different ways. Then we have the Muft Bijli Yojana, the free electricity scheme, the National Bioenergy Program, PM Kusum, ministry has been leading that charge for all the states, the National Green Hydrogen Mission, which we are also as NRDC getting more and more involved in. And the transition in all these schemes has to be as visionary, as ambitious, as holistic for the women as it is for the men. So not to keep it gender neutral, but to be gender sensitive. That is at the heart of today's discussion, and the topic of the discussion indeed is putting gender at the heart of India's clean energy revolution. So just to conclude, I would like to say that women are not just beneficiaries of clean energy. They are the agents of change. They are the drivers of this revolution. And let us not forget that, number one. The women-led clean energy solutions, which I'm so fortunate, SEWA sisters are here, ministry is here. They will be able to point out much more to them. That can improve energy access, and that will lead to, like the example I gave, enhanced health, better education, better economic outcomes, especially for women, also for men, also for the environment, but especially for women. Women, when empowered, not only transform the household, but the entire community and the entire nation, and hopefully the ripple effects of that reach far beyond the borders of India. We in NRDC are looking at many opportunities to do that. I'm grateful to Amanda Maxwell, who is the managing director for our global work, who is here with us today, to see how these lessons can be shared outside of India and how we can take advantage of what is happening outside, learn from the beacons of light that are around us and bring them here. In conclusion, I will just like to quote a couplet from a very famous Urdu poet of Lucknow, where I am from, and he was extremely popular with women because he was also, in that day and age, a very women-sensitive poet. Urdu poetry is known for eulogizing the beauty of women, the romance of women, and the poetry is all full of what we call gul and bulbul. Gul is flower and bulbul is the singing bird. But Majaz was a revolutionary poet in some ways. And he said, तेरे मुंह पे ये आंचल, तेरे मुंह पे ये आंचल, खूबसूरत तो है मगर, अगर इसका ये परचम बना लेती तो अच्छा था. The scarf that is covering you is beautiful, but if you had made it into a flag and led the world with it, that would be much better. Let us, all of us, carry that flag forward and make this India's clean energy transition, putting women at its heart. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Thanks a lot, Deepa, for such inspiring words and being such a powerful voice as always. So thanks a lot for coming all the way to this venue. So yeah, we all you have been a guiding light for all of us for being there always. Yeah, we have a very interesting panel also today where we'll hear from the ministry, we'll hear from our own colleague Amanda, we'll also hear from the Skill Council on green jobs, and as well as we have a very interesting speaker from SEWA. So before we go to the panel discussion, we have a short video which we'd like to show to all of you on the impacts of Haryali Gram so far. And the video also includes some interesting testimonials from beneficiaries from the ground who have actually benefited from the adoption of DRE solutions. So just a quick 6 minutes video, and after that we'll dive into the panel discussion. I'll just play the video.
In rural India, a green revolution is being powered by a bouquet of clean energy solutions. It's not just generating power, it's changing lives of thousands of families.
પાણીનો ખર્ચો બચી ગયો પણ આના લીધે અમારા ઘરની અંદર ઠંડક રહેતી હતી અને ગેસ અમે અત્યારે ચૂલામાં ઈંધણ તરીકે ઉપયોગ કરીએ છીએ.
Nearly 2/3 of India's population that resides in villages has limited access to clean energy sources. To bridge this gap, the Natural Resources Defence Council and Self-Employed Women's Association, or SEWA, a grassroots organization, came together to develop the Haryali Gram initiative.
પણ જ્યારે સોલર પંપ આવ્યા પછી
A 360-degree climate-friendly solution that has turned the lives and livelihoods of women around. In Rasnol village in Gujarat, Neerubai and Ramesh Bhai Gohil used to spend hours irrigating her crops.
એ પાણીની બહુ મુશ્કેલી હતી. તો પહેલાં અમે ઢાળિયા પદ્ધતિથી પાણી લઈએ તો પહેલાં અમે ટાઈમે પાણી ના મળે. પાણી ના મળે તો અમને દિવસે તો મોટા ખેડૂતો પાણી આપે નહીં. રાત્રે જ અમારે પાણી વાળવું પડે. તો રાત્રે પાછી જ્યારે જીવજંતુની પણ ડર લાગે. તો મજબૂરીમાં પણ પાણી ટાઈમે વાળવું પડે.
Through Haryali Gram, she was provided training and access to a clean source of energy.
તો પ્રિસિઝન પંપ કર્યા પછી મારે નિદામણનો ખર્ચો બચી ગયો, પછી પાણીનો ખર્ચો બચી ગયો, પછી મજૂરી કરવી પડતેલી એ મજૂરીનો ખર્ચો બચી ગયો. પ્રિસિઝન પંપ લીધા પછી મારે 45,000નો મરચો થયો અને 29,000 રૂપિયા મને નફો થયો.
None of this work would have been possible without the on-ground interventions by SEWA.
When an agriculture laborer, when she is able to earn a life of dignity and self-respect, the whole process of transformation begins and her self-confidence grows, and then there's no looking back. And that's what Haryala Gaon does, because it brings in different kinds of tools and technology which are affordable to all the households in a village.
Saroj Ben of Rasoda Gaon shares how difficult it was to cook on traditional wood-fired stoves.
તો તે સમયે મારા રસોડામાં ઘણી બધી મુશ્કેલીઓ આવતી હતી. ધુમાડો જે થતો હતો એના કારણે મારો આંખોની બળતરા થતી હતી, મારું શ્વાસમાં તકલીફ પડતી હતી, મારું ઘર કાળું થતું હતું, મારું માથું દુખતું હતું, મારા બાળકો, મારા ઘર પરિવારને પણ આરોગ્યનો તકલીફ પડતી હતી.
Next, Saroj Ben learned how to use a biogas unit. The biogas generated is transformed through pipe into her kitchen and helps cook her food without any smoke.
રોટલા બની શકે છે, ખીચડી બની શકે, દાળ ભાત તમારે જે બનાવવું હોય બની શકે છે અને ગેસ અમને પૈસાનો પણ બચાવ થાય છે.
In the future, due to climate change, temperatures are expected to rise, making it difficult for large sections of the population to live. That's why cool roofs take center stage.
જ્યારે મારે કુલિંગ રૂફ નહોતું લગાવેલું ત્યારે બહુ બધી મને પરેશાની થતી હતી. પણ આના લીધે અમારા ઘરની અંદર ઠંડક રહેતી હતી. રસોડાની અંદર પણ અમે ઠંડક અનુભવીએ છીએ.
Perhaps the significance of the Haryali Gram interventions is that they are simple to access and manage for the women.
India has already announced that they will have the energy independence by 2047. And if you want to make this village as an energy independent, so Haryali Gram, this initiative is toward that.
Every village of India should become a Haryali Gram. But to get to that, we need the involvement and the engagement of stakeholders from every section of society. We're actually working with state governments, local bodies, village organizations, self-help groups, and with every level of organizations to make this eventually into a state level and a national level program.
Anything that India does or does not do will have huge implications on our global fight against climate change. That's why we're working with our partners in India to speed up an equitable transition to clean energy. These efforts are a testament to the power of engaging with rural women and communities in India's clean energy transition. I expect that the success of this program will
I'm not sure whether that was an abrupt ending, but yeah, hopefully, like you all got the message. Yeah. Quickly, we'd like to also show you some of the impacts of Haryali Gram. So we recently did an assessment of the impact of our work in two states, Gujarat and Rajasthan, in two particular villages. So there are some numbers and impact indicators that we would like to show, which we have actually found from this assessment. So we have a couple of slides on this, which, yeah, we'll talk about those numbers. So on the left, the infographic actually talks about the features of a typical Haryali gram, where we are saying that the Haryali gram should have improved energy access. Community participation is a very important component to ensure the success of Haryali gram. Awareness and capacity building goes without saying, kind of applies to any kind of work that we do around clean energy in India and kind of beyond in other sectors as well. Use of climate-friendly interventions, which I'll talk a bit about those interventions and adoption. Fuel choice, so beneficiaries have got a choice of fuel to transition away from fossil fuels or traditional fuels which they have been using over the last few years, and enhance lives and livelihoods, where we have also seen beneficiaries have actually, their incomes have gone up, their savings have gone up because of the adoption. So, and also, yeah, Haryali Gram also touches these sustainable development goals. Yeah, quickly moving on, because I think Sangita ma'am has a hard stop. So yeah, ma'am, very quickly we'll touch some of the numbers. We have seen there is an increased appliance ownership across both the villages, where we have seen, for example, adoption of solar lamps, solar lanterns, solar fencing, LED bulbs. Goes without saying, it cuts across both urban and rural India. So ownership and adoption of these appliances have really gone up in across over the last 5 years. So this analysis is actually captures the analysis of over the last 5 years. So between 2019 and 2024, what kind of impact has happened over across these two villages. Beneficiaries have also switched to biogas. They have moved away from firewood or LPG. LPG is still there, but yeah, there is a significant drop in the use of firewood, and also they are saving a lot of money and also time like in the form of kind of time which they had to give to collect firewood. So there is also, so the households are also saving a lot of time which they are then using for more productive uses, to also do other livelihood kind of activities. So biogas adoption is also playing a big role. Productive utilization of time saved. So here we have seen there's a significant drop in the time that they used to give to collect firewood, dung cake, charcoal, and LPG. And then where we have also seen that 90% of the households are utilizing the time saved in other livelihood activities and opportunities. So which has also resulted in significant increase in their incomes and savings over the last 5 years. A reduction in expenditure on traditional fuels. We have seen a significant drop in the use of diesel for both irrigation and non-irrigation purposes across both the villages. Firewood use has gone up. So this is a very localized phenomenon. We have seen that firewood use has gone up because households now have more kettles, from 2 to 3 kettles, like few households have 8 to 9 kettles, and then these households are using firewood to prepare cattle feed. So that's why this is a bit outlier, but yeah, there are obvious reasons for that. But kerosene use and diesel use has really gone down. Impact of cool roof, as we have also seen in the video, households have also implemented cool roof, which has resulted in significant reduction in seepage as well as improvement in thermal comfort. So where 69% of the households have reported positively that cool roof has impacted or benefited them. Increase in household income and savings, as I was mentioning, there's a huge jump in the overall incomes as well as savings across these two villages. There are few households for whom the income has really gone up, but on an average, like we have seen for the entire sample size, like for all the households, income has really gone up because of multiple factors, which also include adoption of clean, climate-friendly solutions. Lastly, I think last couple of slides, the adoption has also impacted their health. This is a long-term thing, but most of the households, like 88% of the households, have acknowledged the link between traditional cooking and indoor air pollution. And more than 75% of the households have reported reduction of indoor air pollution because of moving to cleaner cooking methods. So yeah, and health impacts is a long-term thing, but they have already started to phase to kind of experience the benefits of this. Last one on the emissions. The adoption has also resulted in emission reduction from these climate-friendly technologies adoption. Like this is just a sample slide, but yeah, we can also replicate or scale this up to at the village level. Sorry, I'm just going a bit fast, but we do have copies of the report which we are also going to launch now. So feel free to go through that report in detail. This is the last slide where we are saying that if one Haryali Gram like of around 200 to 300 households can adopt a package of these solutions, that will result in avoided emissions of 280 tons of carbon dioxide, which is also equivalent to 1% taking 480 Delhi-Mumbai round-trip flights. So that's the kind of impact Haryali Gram is kind of making on the ground. Yeah, thanks. We'll be happy to answer any questions after the session, but yeah. That's it from me on the presentation. We do have a report which we are going to launch now on where we have assessed the impact of Haryali Gram in Naganomat village in Gujarat and Bareilly in Rajasthan in partnership with our dear friend SEWA. So and areas, of course, yeah. So I'd like to invite, Dipa is already there. Thanks, Dipa. SEWA team, Jyoti Ben, please, if you can come on the stage and please yeah, be here. Rana Ben also, please feel free to come. Amanda, if you can also please come and have a copy of the report. And Sangita ma'am, please. Yeah. Arpit sir, yeah, please. Arpit Sharma is Chief Executive Officer of the Skill Council for Green Jobs. Sir, please, if you can also please join us. Thank you everyone. Yeah. Now we are moving to the panel discussion. The topic of the panel discussion is integrated policy actions at the cross section of gender and clean energy in India. For this, we have a very interesting panel. The panel discussion will be moderated by our colleague Charu Lata, who is the Director of Renewable Energy in NRDC India. Charu, why don't you come and take a seat. I'd like to invite Sangita Kasture ma'am, who is the Scientist G at MNRE. Mr. Arpit Sharma, Chief Executive Officer, Skill Council for Green Jobs. Jyoti Macwan, General Secretary, Self-Employed Women's Association, and Amanda Maxwell, Managing Director at Global NRDC. Charu, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rana. And I know we are running a little behind schedule, so I will be brief and we will move directly to the questions. We have a stellar panel today, like Rana introduced everyone. I will start with the ministry. We have the representative from Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Dr. Sangita Kasture. Ma'am, we know that MNRE continuously, takes steps to ensure gender representation in India's clean energy transition. But we also know a lot still needs to be done. You've been part of the bioenergy program, you've led it for many, many years, and you've engaged across governance levels. What I want to understand from you is bioenergy is one sector where, if we look at rural India, women are deeply engaged. What do you think could be some of the strategies that can be implemented to ensure that through policies that the government has, more and more women are, one, they participate in the sector, and then they are not just users of this clean energy interventions that we are talking about, but more like managers and owners of these technologies.
Thank you, and very pleasure to be part of this, all co-panelists and audience. As you know, MNRE has been working, and on the stage, renewable energy and clean transition is very important, and India has ambitious target of reaching 500 gigawatt, and bioenergy does contribute and plays a crucial role. I think social impact is very high with respect to bioenergy, because we are trying to utilize waste residue. That could be waste, could be agriculture residue, industrial waste, or cattle dung. So which is surplus available in India, and that through that, first is we are reducing emissions from that, and second is advantages, we are converting it to energy. Coming to your question, biogas scheme is also been implemented from the ages in the MNRE, and we have under National Bioenergy Program the small and medium size biogas scheme. The small size, family size biogas is very popular, and the major beneficiary is women only, because it saves the clean energy, clean cooking fuel is provided through this, and they try to save, because through using this, their time is saved, their efforts are, and more importantly, their health. Health is also the whatever the otherwise emissions and those things are emitted, that respiratory system is improved better, and that way women are empowered in this thing. You are coming to your question is, yes, apart from beneficiary, how they can own these things. So we are encouraging that, because we are saying all states, at least 25% women should be there in the biogas who can own that. So their name, because we have the online registration process where our women can lead these things. So that is mandatory, and there is no asset or in documentation required. That we have relaxed. So earlier it was there, so that we don't make it mandatory. So anybody can apply, and we will see in later future how we can incentivize that further for that women, so that maximum women can take part in this, and they can own these biogas plants. Apart from biogas, there is a byproduct which is the slurry, digested slurry. That is also very important, and that is also contributing to circular economy, where I can give an example in Gujarat, where they have formulated a manure cooperative. So maximum women, more than 200, 300 women are the societies from cooperation society, and they are getting more revenue generation from this manure selling that. So that way they are empowered. So there is a group, a self-help group, and these things. So Mahila, I can just quote their name. That is a Majkuva Sakhi Sahakari Mandali, based on Mujkuva village, and I'm very happy to know that they have also been invited for the at-home reception in President House. 26 January, 2 women were also invited, and they have achieved the revenue of 69 lakhs in financial year 23-24, and the profit has been distributed among the women. So some of the women could be here, so that is very good actually model. So this way, if we can replicate this model, it would be good to know that they can earn, and they also feel happy, and they are contributing to the entire climate change mitigation goals and net zero, whatever we are expecting in that. So with this, I think I can stop. So if any further questions are there, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I think you correctly pointed out that bioenergy is one technology that just does not lead to reduced emissions, but also reduces drudgery of women and improves their health. Not just their health, I should say, the indoor air quality of the house and the heat impact within the house is reduced. It's great to see that within the bioenergy program, you have a percentage representation of women, and the documentation requirements are also eased. I hope the same is replicated across the other MNRE schemes, because be it PM Surya Ghar or other schemes, PM Kusum, we need more and more women to lead that transition. So if that can happen, that is just going to be amazing. I will now move to my next speaker, which is Ms. Jyoti Macwan from SEWA. Jyoti Ben, we've seen that whenever we have, any grassroots level initiative like we have Haryali Gram, the penetration of technologies within a village is limited after a certain extent. And we also struggle with it that, after a certain extent, more households cannot adopt a technology. How do you think we can increase the leadership of women so that there is wider adoption of these climate-friendly solutions, as well as this adoption in a way is informing and unlocking innovative policy, technology, and financial solutions to overcome this barrier? It should be on. It's on.
Namaste, and thank you so much for this opportunity to bring the voices of the members of SEWA. But already I would like to thank Dipa ji to bring the voice of SEWA overall, and with the video where you saw SEWA members joining hands with NRDC and now growing. So that means a lot in the women workers' life. That is very important. So I would like to thank you. And yeah, Charuban, actually you said about the women's leadership and the women's role, because SEWA is organizing the women workers across 20 states of India, and we have a membership of 3.2 million members across 20 states who are SEWA members. And starting from Gujarat and now moving to Rajasthan and Maharashtra, it was only because of NRDC we were able to scale up and go with more women. But I think the important is when we talk about the access to clean and green energy, it is connected with the lives and livelihoods of the women workers. So work is very important. They are all women, but they are workers. And also when it affects the household, plus all in the trades which they are working. They are in many informal economy trades, and that is also affected a lot. So if this is accessible to them, that helps their own lives together with the health, but also livelihoods with the trades in which they are working. So I think that is very important. And this role of the women is very important to get recognized and identified. They put so much efforts in taking this forward on the ground. But how do we see? We doesn't want it to see or remain, as Dipaji already told, not only the users, that they use all the equipments and they do it, but why not they are part of the planning process? Why not implanting on the ground? Why not they are the motivators? They can become the trainers, train other women on the ground, operators, technicians, and managers. So how do we bring that role of women into the overall chain of putting the access to clean and green energy? And I think that's very important. But it's very important also to identify the needs of women, what they need on the ground. Like we already saw in the video, and Dipaji also talked about it, and I think biogas was one which sister you mentioned on that. So I think the needs are very important, the ground level need which they practically use every day. So that we actually at SEWA are doing, and what we see that the needs could be bring out through energy auditing and budgeting at the household and the community level. So that I think has to be carried out when you see what we need on the ground to have access to clean and green energy. Then comes that what types of technology and equipment are needed. More creating awareness and education is a basic thing what you have to do simultaneously, continuously throughout. Not that you train one and then you bring the other and then you don't train, but how that training part becomes a continuous process and creating awareness more on them. And also they need some facilitation in terms of how do they do adoption, owning it and also managing it. I think that's what we also talked about, the sustainability of everything. But if the women becomes the managers, owners and users of their own products, own process of accessing the clean energy, that's the sustainable way of going further. I think sustainability also is very much linked with when women themselves are the owner, user, and manager of it. Thirdly, I think to invest in that process is, a process is very important. So how do you invest more in creating more awareness, making them feeling that they are the owner of it? So I think that process investment is very, very well needed. Actually, we are now working in 3 states of India with the same partnership. And secondly, I think it's very, because while women role is there to recognize themselves and maybe generating, as already discussed, on a dignified livelihoods. So I think that dignity is also linked with what, while they are in the process and leading the clean and green energy. It's very important for SEWA because now youth has joined SEWA. If I see 3.2 lakhs members, 3.2 million members, I think 50% of our membership for our daughter and daughter-in-laws of our existing members who are the small farmers, agriculture workers, or artisans, or salt farmers are now SEWA members. So how do you make those use of those youth in terms of training and creating more awareness on the ground? That, I think, seems to be very important. And we now are running a climate school, which also now is training climate entrepreneurs who are the youth, the second membership at SEWA. And that has really taken a lot. They go, I mean, they are trained in a way on more of climate, but also on the ground, how do you install the equipments? And the daughters themselves are doing that on their own, in their own villages. What a sustainable way of taking this forward. And that I think has to, but then that grows because the leadership also grows that way. The youth become the leaders and they take it forward. So that's how the leadership sustainability also go forwards. So I think it has to be created, and this creates more livelihood opportunity, which is very important to create, I mean, through this access to getting clean and green energy. The importance of women and the youth is the creation of the livelihoods at the ground level. And that, I think, is a core of what we see, because then that is connected with food security, health, and every other thing. The education of the children, very important. So I think that is where we have to do this. So how do we make it more inclusive if women are there inside? And then also the understanding the technology and other part. So I think that way we see very important that women cannot be seen just as a women or the user or a small player in terms of taking or accessing cleaning and the green energy part. But I think as more on in terms of their own manage and use for themselves. That's very important. And that creates a leadership on the ground with the youth too.
Thank you so much, Jyoti Ben, and I think I completely agree with you. Women cannot be just the owners of the technologies. They have to be the users and the managers. And you know that holistic concept of when we say climate entrepreneurs, that brings in so many different elements where women are leading the transition. So we essentially want them to be the leaders when it comes to clean energy. I will stop there, but we do have Ms. Sangita Kasture, and she needs to leave. Dipa, if I can please request you to felicitate her.
It's not required. Please continue. That's okay. Sorry for...
Thank you. I know that there's so much pressure in the ministry at this time for the parliament and for the budget. But thank you so much for coming, despite your commitments. Something to remember us and to be continuing to be a strong partner.
So sorry, but we love to do money. Yeah, I would like to be connected.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you, Ms. Kasture. We'll resume with the panel. My next panelist is Mr. Arpit Sharma, who's the CEO for Skills Council for Green Jobs. Arpit ji, skilling and capacity building is kind of at the heart of this transition. We cannot ignore it, be it at the city level or at the village level. Skill Council has an array of trainings. You kind of cover almost every sector that is there when it comes to clean energy. So many qualification packs, so many people getting trained. But most of these trainings are in urban areas and largely in tier 1, 2, 3 cities. How do you think these trainings can be taken to the rural areas where the youth don't have to travel to the cities? The trainings are brought to them. So how do you think that transition can work? And not just the rural people, I would say more women are able to get trained, because women largely we see are not very open to traveling and getting a training because of various socioeconomic conditions. So yeah.
Thank you, Charuji. I would like to first thank NRDC for inviting me here. Dipa ma'am, I hope she recovers very soon. And I can see that she's a lot better than as compared to the last time we met. So Charuji, you have a very, very valid question. So in the testament of it, I have Rana Band sitting in front of me, where we have particularly designed a very customized program for the salt pan workers of Gujarat. They are all members of the SEWA community, and it is a 3-month very exhaustive program where all the SEWA sisters were trained in very harsh conditions on the solar water pumping system in the remote areas of Kutch. Rehana, please correct me if I'm wrong, if my geography, although we have seen the center, we have been to that place together along with the industry, but still I might falter at some place. And the impact of that program was that, after creating a beautiful state-of-the-art center, when I say state-of-the-art, it doesn't mean physically appealing. I say that it has all possible tools and equipments which a solar installation technician should have and know. So it's like a beautiful library with all good books that a child should read. So we deputed one of the best master trainers of the country, who is from the industry. We signed an MOU with this industry expert that you would leave your industry work for the next 2 months and completely be dedicated for the SEWA training. That was the kind of arrangement we had. He happens to be a very dear friend also. And the outcome was that when all the SEWA sisters got trained, certified, and the program was completed, then we jointly took an initiative of taking close to 25 industries from various parts of the country and meet the SEWA sisters after the program. And all of us were pleasantly surprised that 40% of the SEWA sisters got on-the-spot jobs on that day. So that is one classical example of how you can actually bridge and merge technology with good work ethics, with the dedication. I have personally seen it on ground. I know the kind of challenges Rehana Behan has faced during the mobilization, interaction with their parents when they were not ready. गांव में तो situation इतनी difficult हो जाती है कि they're actually not, they're very apprehensive sending their daughters in a mixed batch, because वहाँ पे लड़के भी पढ़ाई करते हैं, so there are a lot of challenges. So to convince them in order to send their daughters for the training, and this would be the reward point, and this would be the outcome of the training, was I would say an extremely challenging task. So this is one classical example. I would like to also bring to your notice that recently, just a few days back, we have signed an MOU with the Government of Australia. Okay. And it has been announced by the Honorable Prime Minister of Australia in front of the Prime Minister of India that we would be setting up a rooftop solar academy in the state of Gujarat, and this would act like a hub, and there would be spokes that would cater to the training program. So the high-level training or the master training, trainer training, or the subject matter expert training would be done here, and all the spokes would be engaged in carrying out the training of 2,000 women. And the Gujarat state has been chosen by default. Everything goes to Gujarat. So, but in a way, it comes from Gujarat also, ma'am. So in a way, we are happy that there's a trade balance. And the third very classical example is that someone mentioned about the PM Surya Ghar Yojana program, which aims to electrify 1 crore households in the country. And there are various components to this program which has been launched by MNRE. So 1 lakh solar installers have to be trained in order to cater to this requirement. In a pilot phase, 20,500 solar helpers would be required to be trained, and they would be getting employment. So when we are talking here as a Sector Skill Council, we are not only talking about training or vocational training or skilling. That is just one part of the overall ecosystem. It has to be bridged with the industry, the curriculums have to be made, people have to be connected with the industry so that they get adequate employment. So it's the whole ecosystem that needs to be completely stitched. And very happily, I would like to tell you that out of the 20,500 component of solar helper, we have given a work order of close to 3,000 women of SEWA group to be trained under this component, which is huge. So we cannot ignore that around 17,000 trainings that would be carried out by the other training academies across the country. Even they would have a component of women who would be trained. So 3,000 trainees, women trainees, along with the other, I would say 500 trainees would contribute to a significant amount of number. And let us not forget that this is PM Surya Ghar Yojana. When we faced the challenge Rehana ban, when we sent the SEWA sisters to the utility scale plants and the conditions were not conducive and they had to come back because the basic amenities were not present, and out of disappointment we were helpless, and we cannot even convince the industry to invest even the slightest of bit which is required for the women. PM Surya Ghar Yojana gives an opportunity to start up a small company. They can start up a small call center, they can do the calling, they can connect with the vendors, they can have a team of 1 or 2 installation technicians, they can procure the orders, they can do the installation, and they can make a livelihood out of this whole scheme. So it's very important that as a technocrat and as a businesscrat, I would say, you have to divide things under various pillars and identify which opportunity suits the best for us. So these are some of the few initiatives that we have taken very, very recently in the last three months. And SEWA Group is very much a part of all these initiatives in this whole ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. It's amazing to see, you talked about the Solar Academy that is coming up in Gujarat, and I know it's a new thing that is happening with the government of Australia, but if we can replicate that to other states. And it's actually very nice to see what you pointed out under PM Surya Ghar. It's not just the women getting trained, but it is the women running a business. So that idea of what I was talking about earlier, entrepreneurship comes, where she's leading a business. So that definitely, you are creating livelihoods in a way there, where women are entering into the sector and then making a lot of change. Thank you for that. I will now move to my last speaker, Amanda. Amanda, you've you've seen, the Haryali Gram work since the inception when we kind of started the project and where we are. And there are so many different, similar initiatives that are happening at the grassroots level in India where women are making a change. But these are all happening in, I would say, smaller pockets. We still need to scale them. We have 6 lakh villages within India, so 600,000 villages in India. Our work is somewhere in 500 villages, Rehana Ben, if I'm not wrong. There are similar, other initiatives that are working in many other villages, but we still need to scale it. What do you think it takes to actually scale such grassroots initiatives at the national level or maybe at the international level? Because there are so many similarities between Global South countries. So I'd like to hear from you on that.
Okay. I think that is the question. We always, I think a lot of organizations, international, national, local, we come up with a great project idea and we're like, okay, that's it, work's done. But really this scaling is a huge question, and especially given the size of the challenges that we're facing now in the planet. So I think one thing I love about the Haryali Gram project, and I'm sure many other projects like it in India, is they're multi-sectoral, right? We've talked about this a lot today, that so many aspects, it's very multidimensional. And so when you think about how to scale that, you also have to take a very multidimensional approach and think about all those sectors and what it takes to expand, to make advances in each of those places. So when I think about it, I've sort of boiled it down to 4 different aspects that I think are really important to think about when you want to scale something up. And the first is it feels very obvious, but it often is very difficult. And it's making sure that policies, government policies from national, state, local, are aligned so that they can support the project. These projects are wonderful. The local organizations, SEWA, or other partners are wonderful, but they have limited capacity, limited resources, limited time. And so if we can help states direct their policies to support those organizations, and also help organizations inform those policies so the information flows both ways, there's a much better chance of these projects being successful and expanding beyond. And also, I would say, not just within the states, but then also figuring out how those state contributions, those local contributions, can add up to the national goals, to the national targets and commitments and programs, like some of the ones that were mentioned earlier today. So making sure those policies are aligned and are supporting the local organizations, and so that the local organizations are supporting the policies and know how to take advantage of those policies is a really important aspect to making sure the whole system can grow. I think the second part that's really important is capacity building and skilling. And this is like the cornerstone of any project, and I cannot improve upon what you've already said, Mr. Arpit, so I will leave it there. The benefit of going last in a panel is you can draw upon other people's excellent contributions already. But I think that is one piece that in many places is overlooked, and that I've noticed in India actually is something that is done very well. And it's something people seem to be very aware of. And so that, if you don't train people, if you don't give them the information they need to be able to become their own agents of change, then you're never going to be able to scale either. The third piece that has been such a foundational part of the work in Haryali Gram is the partnerships. Building really strong, robust, intentional partnerships with organizations, governments, like with RAS, with private companies, with the financial sector, whatever the pieces are, so that the different puzzle pieces fit together in a way that's very clear. Each group has its own contribution it can make and knows where they fit in that puzzle, so that everyone is supporting each other in a way to make a bigger whole, a bigger picture. I think that's something that in Harialigram we've done really, really well. And of course, the partnership with SEWA is the foundation for the whole effort. And then the last piece that's sort of, it is the most difficult nut to crack in a way because it is the ever-present challenge anywhere in the climate space, is finance. You know, you can come up with the best projects and the best policies, but if you can't pay for them, or if the end users can't afford the solutions, then it doesn't get to go anywhere. And so this is where I think this is a very difficult thing to do. And yeah, Jyoti Ben, you know, it's finance itself is just a huge topic. It's a huge world. There's so many different players and stakeholders in that chain. So starting from the global multilateral development banks for public finance, the big global international private banks, they have a really important role to play globally in reducing the risk and recognizing that these kinds of technologies are in fact really good for business and they can earn their money back. That can help trickle down to the national banks, local players. But what really is at the fundamental part of it is, what are the needs of the women on the ground? What are their capacities? What are they able to contribute towards these solutions? What kinds of little tiny tweaks on existing finance mechanisms would just be enough to get it over the edge? And so that's why I think when you want to we'll design a program to start with, but then really scale it, you have to think about that financial component and bring in the financial sector from the beginning so that you're thinking about that ahead of time. And so I think that's kind of how I personally think about scaling with these 4 different aspects. And I think if you don't think about one of them, it's very easy for things to stall out. It's a lot of work, but scaling itself is a lot of work, so.
Thank you for that, Amanda. I think we all completely agree with you that enabling ecosystem that is needed for such projects, which is a mix of policy, technology, skilling, finance, it needs to come together. And even if, you know, that one puzzle piece is not there, the puzzle is not complete and you can't move forward. So yeah, completely agree with you on that. We're almost at time, but we do have time to take audience questions. If anyone has any questions, please introduce yourself and to which speaker you want to ask the question.
Mini from TERI. Thank you for interesting discussions. And, you know, when we talk a lot about, you know, women being managers, owners, using their own products, it's very good to and heartening to listen. I just want to state 1 or 2 examples of our own work. When there has been policy decisions to involve women to be technicians and managers, our own examples of, you know, doing the study in Maharashtra, the Mahavitaran, the distribution company, where women were given opportunities to train to become technician. Line men, what we have seen, there were line women who would want to climb up the poles and fix things and, you know, deal with live wires and things like that. And women were recruited, 30% reservations was for them. And when we went and interacted with them, there has been a lot of resistance from the community. You know, when the fisher community were inducted into it, and the women were, why should a woman wear a man's clothes and climb up a pole when it is so easy to make money by selling fish? So how do we tackle those socio-cultural aspects, even when they get an opportunity? The policy is in favor of them, training is given, capacity building is done. But women are also there, you know, because they are technicians, they have to travel to distant places. Every woman is given a toolkit to deal with that, and women insisted that they also be given a kit of Fair and Lovely because they need to be out in the sun. The prospects of marriages is coming down. So how do we tackle that? And adding 1 more point here is about the skill development. You know, the National Skill Development Agency, they also do a lot of skills related to all of this, and some of their batches had more than 50% of women who have undergone training, and it was like, you know, they had good statistics, good numbers, which makes all of us very happy. And we went looking back, I mean, tracing those women who have taken those training, but where are they? Why are those women missing? It's giving access to training is an extremely important part. But what I would like to say is implementing the training that's received. Many women who receive training are not putting that training into use. They're not there. And we are talk about women not being in STEM, they're not being in, technical position, managerial positions, but we produce the largest number of women engineers in India. Where are they? Where do they go missing? Women who have taken technical trainings, taken up as an engineering and technical jobs, we have interviewed them. They have switched gradually to administrative posts. They have been trained as technicians, trained as managers, but why do they don't want it? They say we are not able to travel to the long sites, balancing, families becoming difficult. There is no child care there. It's all about supportive mechanism. The traveling is something which they kind of don't want to do that. Yeah, I think there are a lot more, but I would like to give to my next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Avni Sablok from Indian Council of World Affairs. And my question is, thank you for addressing the elephant in the room, finance. And it will be really great to know more about how these challenges are addressed, especially ones related to financing these projects. And how did you bridge the gaps? Because I think everybody in the audience and whosoever listens to the whole panel discussion would love to know how, as an individual, as woman, when you want to start a particular project, finance and budgeting are the more crucial things because of which a person faces, procrastinates a lot before starting something, which is very forward-looking and anything which could make a difference in everybody's life. So, thank you.
Thank you for both the questions. I would request the speakers.
Well, I have a very beautiful solution for the STEM problem, as you mentioned. So when we are talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so we see most of the candidates, dropping out from the science education and the mathematics field after the 10th class. So one of the possible solutions is introduction of vocational skills at the school level. So if one of the subjects, which is the maths or the physics or any of the science or chemistry for that matter, it is introduced at a level where a candidate is actually studying commerce or arts, then it automatically generates the interest and the possibility that he or she might choose science as a primary subject increases tenfold. So this is one of the solutions. In fact, exactly the same thing happened. I'm mentoring a young lady. She's from the London School of Economics and she's doing her research. So we have weekly interactions and I fill her questionnaires and we do sit on virtually on a lot of research questions, and this is what she did. She has economics as a subject, and as part of the vocational skills, she took physics as one of the key subjects in her course. So that is one of the possible solutions. As far as your second question goes, that people take these subjects and see, anything that you do, whether you have interest or you might be a victim of the circumstances, now this ecosystem is working very hard to join the dots, and the end goal is to actually provide employment to the candidate. So this employment, once he or she gets the employment, it is being tracked for 6 months. There are performance criterias. There are quite big chances, fair chances that he or she might drop out after 6 months. They might not like the vocational skills at all. So, there's a tracking mechanism which is actually coming into place. So, very realistically, you will see a lot of changes which might be happening in this ecosystem in the next 6 months. And already the government has a lot of focus as well as budget for apprenticeship and vocational education this year. So let us wait for a while. Let us see how 6 months go. So everyone, at least in the ecosystem, is pretty positive about it.
I think the questions on finance is very, very important. When we go on the ground with talking everything on the ground, the practicality, but the finance is the base of how do we deal with that. And I think at SEWA, since we are organizing the women since almost 52 years now, the women also have set up their own women's bank. We have a cooperative bank in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad. It's still only in Gujarat and serves also the rural areas of Gujarat. But in the rural areas, since I think almost 40 years ago, we have SHGs on the ground. Before any scheme came from the government or Grameen Bank, SEWA Bank had started the self-help groups on the ground which promote savings and credit. And I think more than 10,000 of such groups are very active on the ground. So when it comes to access to clean and energy part, of course the awareness, the training has to be done in partnership, but the finance of the equipment has to be done by the groups themselves. So I think they are doing that. Now they are taking, if I wanted to have a lantern or a precision pump or a biogas, they have to take loan from their own group in their own village. And these all SHGs are federated into a district federation who are bringing, I think, money from SEWA Bank to association, then to group, and then to individual. And we have seen that for all our 52 years experience, that is very much accessible. But I think still it's a problem. Still, even if this does not serve everyone, it's only who are part of it gets served. But then there's more population in the villages, in urban too. So I think what we now are more in terms of thinking that how do we set up a blended finance facility so that serves everyone. And I think we have started a very small pilot in terms of creating a livelihood recovery and resilient fund where the women could access that. Because it's hard for them, these women workers, the farmers or the salt farmers, to go in a nationalized bank and to get an immediate loan for getting an equipment or a biogas. So I think the setup of blended finance is very, very important, which we still would like to take it forward. And I think that may serve the overall question on serving everyone on the ground, especially the women, on accessing the finance part. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti Ben, Arpit ji. We can take more questions after this. All the speakers are going to be here. Rehana Ben, if you want to add a bit on the socio-cultural factors, because that was also a part of the question the female raised. I know SEWA has been dealing with that and we've had several conversations, so if you want to answer that. Okay. With this, we will wrap up the panel. I would like to thank all the speakers. Thank you so much for your time, for your very pertinent remarks on this very, very important and timely topic. At we have the International Women's Day during the weekend, so very, very timely discussion to have. I also want to thank all our audience for their time, for engaging with us, and we do have the speakers here if you have any follow-up questions. We'll wrap up the event now, but I want to leave all of you with one quote from Malala Yousafzai. We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.